buildup of the Nazi Party in Germany, even at the same time backing Roosevelt's New Deal in 1932 and 1933. Had the Nazis won the Second World War, realized the leaders of the Standard Oil Syndicate, they would become the most powerful corporate leadership of both North America and Europe, the uncontested kings of the world. There was a lot riding on the outcome of World War II through the eyes of limitless greed. Ambassador Dodd in Germany was struck by the monetary and technical contribution by the Rockefeller-controlled Vacuum Oil Company in building up military gasoline facilities for the Nazis. So Ambassador Dodd in Germany warned President Franklin Roosevelt to the danger. But Dodd's warning fell on deaf ears. Dodd believed, for some reason, that Roosevelt would intervene, but Roosevelt was allied to and backed by the same oil interests who were funding the Nazis and the Bolsheviks. That was Rockefeller, who had his eyes on the Russian Baku oil fields, Tegel, and their syndicate of industrialists, bankers, and allies within the military. James Warburg, the son of Paul Warburg, was a financial advisor to Franklin D. Roosevelt in the first years of his presidency. As well, Patsy Hofstangel, another Roosevelt friend, was also a participant in the Reichstag fire, an engineered German crisis not unlike America's 9/11 or Britain's gunpowder plot that helped turn the German people toward Nazi control. I.G. Farben contributed 400,000 Reichsmarks directly to Schacht and Hess for use in the crucial 1933 elections, and Farben was subsequently in the forefront of military development in Nazi Germany. The money men who played a direct central role in I.G. Farben and Hitler's coup d'etat were Walter Tegel, representing J.D. Rockefeller Sr., banker Paul Warburg, whose brother Max Warburg was on the board of I.G. Farben in Germany, and Edsel Ford. The financing for Hitler and his SS street thugs came in mostly from the Bank of England and these U.S. firms, including Henry Ford in 1922. Edsel Ford would continue the family tradition in 1942 by encouraging French Ford to profit from arming the German Wehrmacht, and later these Ford vehicles were used by Germany against American soldiers as they landed in France in 1944. Many U.S. multinational corporations made millions from Hitler's military construction program, all the way up through 1942. Among the U.S. corporations which were financing the Nazis, J.P. Morgan, T.W. Lamont, the Rockefellers, Standard Oil, National City Bank, Chase and Manhattan Banks, Kuhn Loeb and Company, Union Banking Company, led by George Herbert Walker, George Bush Sr.'s grandfather, and Prescott Bush, who was one of only 7 shareholders in UBC, a New York bank for the leading Nazi banker and supporter Fritz Thyssen. Brown Brothers Harriman, led by Averell Harriman, the railroad tycoon, and Prescott Bush, father of George Bush Sr. and grandfather to George Bush Jr. Brown Brothers Harriman and Company was created through the 1931 merger of Brown Brothers and Company, a century-plus-old Philadelphia merchant bank, with Harriman Brothers and Company, recently established in New York City in 1927, and A. Harriman and Company. Among its initial partners was Prescott S. Bush, later a senator from Connecticut. Brown Brothers Harriman and Company was one of Fritz Thyssen's Wall Street connections. Thyssen was an ardent financial backer of the Nazi Party until 1938. Thyssen later confessed to his financings in a book called I Paid Hitler. For Thyssen's interests, Brown Brothers Harriman had bought and shipped millions of dollars of gold, steel, fuel, coal, and U.S. Treasury bonds to Germany, used to build the Nazis' war machine. Brown Brothers Harriman's dealings were sanctioned by Roosevelt's U.S. Treasury Department, which insisted that so-called trusted German business in the United States. Union Banking Company worked in concert with the royal Dutch family, specifically Prince Bernhard, through Thyssen's Dutch banks. Thyssen had control of many German banks, as well as those in Holland, and Union Banking Company and Brown Brothers Harriman in the United States. In this way, Thyssen could funnel money out of Germany through Holland and into the United States through Union Banking Company. When reserves at Thyssen's German banks needed replenishing, Prescott Bush laundered the Nazi money through Brown Brothers Harriman and sent it back to Thyssen's banks in Germany. Thyssen relocated to the U.S. in 1939 as he had planned years in advance, just as the Second World War was about to erupt. For his part, Prince Bernhard went on to form the Bilderberg Group. In October 1942, the abuse had become so blatant that the U.S. government seized all the Nazi banking operations managed by Prescott Bush. Union Banking Corporation and Prescott Bush were charged with trading with the Enemy Act, and all their stocks were seized. Then the U.S. seized two Harriman companies led by Bush, Holland America Trading Corporation and Seamless Steel Equipment Corporation. Then in November 1942, yet another Walker Bush Corporation was seized, Silesian American Corporation. It was official. The Bush family had assisted the Nazis in financing and making the steel to kill Allied soldiers. This was treason. Approximately one-third of the German war machine was financed by Thyssen through the Bush family. Incidentally, when Thyssen died in 1951, the assets were unfrozen, and Prescott Bush, soon to be a Connecticut senator, was given $1.5 million. Chase Manhattan Bank received 31% of the Thyssen fortune at this time. The Rockefellers were in it up to the top of their heads. Today, the Thyssen Group is the wealthiest industrial in Germany. The Bush family has gone on to create financial alliances with the Bin Laden family of Saudi Arabia through the Carlyle Group. One wonders when these engineered wars and atrocities will stop. As well, in 1933, General Electric made payments to strengthen the Nazi Party, which helped put the uniforms on Himmler and his SS street thugs. A donation of 60,000 Reichsmarks was made to Hitler by German General Electric AEG, which had 4 directors and a 25 to 30% interest held by the U.S. General Electric parent company. Gerard Swope, an originator of Roosevelt's National Recovery Administration, Owen Young of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and Clark Minor of International General Electric were dominantly in control of German General Electric. Almost all the directors of German General Electric were Hitler backers. GE was also cooperating with the Nazis, Gustav Krupp von Bohlen und Holbach, and Krupp Steelworks. GE actually restricted U.S. development of tungsten carbide to the detriment of the U.S. in World War II. Somehow, the German General Electric plants managed to avoid being bombed the entire war by the Allies. Apparently, Churchill, Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower, and the combined military of the Allies just overlooked them, accidentally, inadvertently, and they would have us think that we were not patriots to even consider otherwise. General Electric now owns NBC, MSNBC, CNBC, and a multitude of media networks throughout the world. Coincidentally, they aren't broadcasting this information either. In 1934, Irene DuPont of the DuPont family, William S. Knudsen, president of General Motors, and other banks from the DuPonts, the J.P. Morgan Bank, and General Motors, financed a coup d'etat to install a fascist dictatorship in the United States. General Smedley Darlington Butler was approached by the plotters to lead the new military government, but instead blew the whistle on this Wall Street conspiracy to Roosevelt. The story was leaked to the press, which led a number of the conspirators to leave the country while the heat was turned up. According to Jules Archer, this fascist takeover of the United States was to be maintained under a dictator on behalf of America's bankers and industrialists. Congress merely conducted a token investigation, and 4 years later published a report that was restricted to only a few eyes. But the report did acknowledge that certain persons did make an attempt to form a fascist organization. General Motors Germany, Opel, on American executives' orders, produced the Opel Blitz troop transports, as well as parts for the Luftwaffe Ju-88 bombers. Americans bombed the General Motors Brandenburg factory in 1944, but after the war, U.S. taxpayers were forced to pay over $32 million as damages to General Motors. GM Vice President in charge of European operations James D. Mooney received Hitler's Order of Merit of the Eagle in 1938 for his ardent work for the Nazi war machine. German General von Schell commented in 1941 that without the GM Opel factory, the Germans would have been unable to wage war in Europe. Other payments to the Nazi Party were made by the German electrical firm Siemens. Texas Oil Company, Texaco, was involved in Nazi endeavors through the German attorney Westrick. International Telephone and Telegraph Company made a fortune off the Nazi war machine through Baron Kurt von Schroeder's banking group. IT&T also held a 28% interest in Focke-Wulf Aircraft, which manufactured the German fighter planes. Nazi armament minister Albert Speer and his Gestapo staff employed IBM machines to quickly and smoothly establish who were Jews, half-Jews, union members, and card-carrying communists through deals with IBM's Thomas J. Watson, and rounded up over 1 million individuals for torture, execution, or slave labor with help